As is typical for Louisiana weather, the humidity was a clear indication that the state would be experiencing yet another hot summer. I picked up the key fob to my rental after I landed and jogged to the parking lot. I drove to my hotel, ensuring no one was following. I arrived at the Grandeur Heights Hotel, near the Louis Armstrong Global Airport, and checked in at the front desk. The receptionist smiled broadly and handed me the key card to the room. I took the elevator up and entered the room. I was greeted by the cool air conditioning, which was a welcome relief from the heat outside. It was a tastefully decorated, spacious suite with large windows on three sides, a king-size bed, small kitchen, and dining table in the center. There was a desk and a comfortable office chair. There was another leather chair in the corner near the door. A sparkling clean in-suite bathroom with a tub and Egyptian cotton towels and robes set off the luxurious feel of the room. It was the perfect 4-star relaxing ambiance before the arduous task ahead. I took a quick shower and changed into a fresh suit before heading down to the lobby. By the time Nick and Cliff showed up an hour later, I had downed at least 7 cups of coffee and was keyed up on caffeine. We had pulled off clandestine operations before to protect clients and witnesses, but this one was particularly tricky, so I was nervous. Would this witness cooperate and tell us the truth? The trust had unlimited resources and they could be watching Harvey. Harvey himself could be a trap of some sort, but we needed to look at every possible angle of this case, and Ramos Harvey was a crucial angle to investigate. A miserable-looking man, looking 10 years older than he really was, walked in between my 2 investigators. He glanced over his shoulder with every step. The 3 walked past me in the lobby. Cliff picked up the key to the room from the front desk. By this time, an older man had replaced the beautiful brown-skinned young lady who had checked me in an hour earlier. Cliff nodded almost imperceptibly in my direction as the 3 of them walked to the elevators. I waited a few minutes, then called an elevator, but I didn't wait for it. Instead, I took the stairs and took my time getting to the 5th floor. From there, I took an elevator to the top floor, all the while making sure I wasn't being watched or followed. I softly tapped on the door to room 708 and entered. Cliff was in the process of setting up his portable surveillance system to ensure our safety, should anything go wrong. He placed a tiny camera on the outside of the door just beneath the peephole, and another on the ceiling near the smoke detector. This one offered a panoramic view of the room and captured audio. He placed a modified nanocom on the table and turned it on. A live feed from the cameras loaded, and Cliff walked over to each window and closed the blinds. Nick had taken a defensive position near the balcony's sliding glass doors. "Mr. Harvey, my name is Kelvin Williams." I held up my hand, and Harvey gave it a limp shake. "Call me Ramos," he mumbled. "Thank you for coming. Please have a seat," I offered. He sat on the edge of the bed for a few seconds, then stood up and began pacing. He wore a tan suit 2 sizes too big. His hair, frazzled like a comb or brush, hadn't touched it in years. Cliff handed me the dossier he and Nick had compiled on Harvey. At 58, just over 5 feet tall, he was a chronic alcoholic, and the odor of strong liquor literally oozed from his pores. "I can't do this, Mr. Williams. Sorry, I think I want to leave. I don't want to talk anymore. I just can't," Ramos said nervously and headed for the door. "Look, Ramos, we appreciate you coming down here, but if you don't help us, very bad people are going to get away with murder. Come on, sit down, take a breath, and relax. You can do this," I stated. "We can protect you," Nick offered. Ramos continued pacing the room, hugging himself and shivering. "We found him in a dark corner of a bar in View Cary last night," Cliff whispered to me. "We gave him enough coffee to keep a horse awake, drove around the city for a while, and let him nap at the hotel before heading down." "You sure you weren't followed?" I asked. "I'm sure we weren't. Cliff here is a master at counter-surveillance. He would know if we were followed," Nick responded. "All right, Ramos. Talk to me. What happened? With the EV-909, I mean." I tried to sound compassionate. I don't know what happened. I don't know," Ramos responded. "Come on, Ramos. Stop pacing and sit down. You're safe. No one knows you're here. You heard my team. You guys weren't followed. There's nothing for you to worry about. I promise you," I tried to reassure him again. A sudden loud knock at the door startled us all, especially Ramos, who dove into the bathroom and locked the door from the inside.
everyone. I am Keisha Charles, a dedicated mother of six from the beautiful village of Kulibistri in Dominica, the nature island of the Caribbean. Over the years, I've learned that despite of the challenges that I may encounter throughout life's journey, that I should never give up and always believe in myself. From a young age, I had a deep love for English and literature, often finding happiness in reading books and exploring mobile libraries. My journey as a writer began in 1991, where I combined my passion for words with my artistic skills to craft engaging stories and poems. I always believe that one day, the same way that I have been reading and enjoying books written by different authors, that I would become an author and that my work would be available out there for people to read. Encouraged by the support of positive friends and family that God have placed in my life, I continue to develop my writing skills. I play an active role as the secretary of the PTA or Parent Teacher Association at the Cooley Primary School. Whenever I get the chance, I love sharing my stories and poems with the students, inspiring them to cultivate their own creativity and passion for reading. I am now a member of the Pitonwa Sci-Fi Fantasy Writing Collective. I have contributed three stories to the Flying Quapo, Heroes and Monsters, the third book in the anthology series, Madonna the Village Witch, The Haunted House, and the Invasion of the Giant Quapos. This book is available on Amazon. I am now a published author of a book of poetry, Don't Give Up, which is also available on Amazon. In this book, I have compiled a collection of spiritually inspired verses that reflect the essence of everyday life. Each poem springs forth from the fertile ground of my experiences and observations. As the title of my book is Don't Give Up, I encourage everyone out there that if you have a dream or a God given talent, that whatever it is, don't give up. Always believe in yourself. And according to the Bible, if you have faith, even as small as a mustard seed, anything is possible for you. As I said, these two books are available on Amazon. At this time, let me or allow me to read a few poems from my book of poetry. This one is entitled A Mother's Love. A mother's love is unique. It is something that every child seeks. A mother's love begins in the womb and carries on even when she reaches the tomb. Her love is everlasting. It is passed on to her generation. A mother's love has a beginning, but you will never find an ending. It goes on and on. A mother's love is kind. It is easy to find. A mother's love is unselfish. It will never perish. This love is real. It is stronger than steel. A mother's love is a special gift from our Creator. It grows by the hour and blossoms like a beautiful flower. A mother's love demonstrates wisdom. It comforts whenever you feel down. Her love is priceless, something no man can test. You can't buy it in the store. To her children, she always gives more. A mother's love shows understanding. With her, there's no pretending. It is patient and forgiving. A mother's love knows no boundaries as she makes countless sacrifices. Her love showers like rain and knows how to ease your pain. A mother's love is natural. It is not fake, it's original. A mother's love is not custom made, therefore shall never fade. Now I'm going to read a poem which has the same title as the book itself. Don't give up. Whenever you feel like you're at the end of a rope and you think like there is no hope, don't give up. When you feel like there's no need to smile and there's only sadness registered in your file, don't give up. When walls seems to be closing up on you and you just don't know what to do, don't give up. When you see the sun disappears and only darkness appears, don't give up. When you don't have it in you to try because all you want to do is cry, don't give up. When you feel like nobody cares and like life is unfair, don't give up. When you feel rejected because you were neglected, don't give up. When all you can feel is pain and it seems like you are lying in a drain, don't give up. When you look around for somebody, all you can find is nobody, don't give up. When all you can do is worry and feel for yourself is worry, don't give up. When your heart is breaking and your body is aching, don't give up. When sadness makes you dull and you feel very small, don't give up. Don't you ever give up. You are not alone. There's someone mighty sitting on a throne. Don't give up. Even though you can't see, this is not how it was intended to be. Don't give up. There's still good time. Things will not always be bitter as lime. Don't give up. There's someone who cares. His love for you he wants to share. Don't give up. Just have faith and believe. He can give you great relief. Don't give up. He watches over you and his promises are always true. Don't give up. He is just a prayer away. He understands everything you want to say. Don't give up. Just call upon his name. His faithfulness remains the same. Don't give up. He can change your life around and you don't have to wear a frown. Don't give up. Just make that move, for your blessings have already been approved. Don't give up. In him you'll find happiness and there'll be no need for sadness. So don't give up. As I said, this is my book of poetry, and this is the Flying Kwapo Heroes and Monsters, the third book of the anthology series by the Peter Nor Writing Sci-Fi Fantasy Writing Collective, where I've got 3 published stories in there. They are both available on Amazon. And my encouragement and my last words to those who are listening to this video, no matter what you are going through, no matter what challenges that you may face in life, I encourage you to believe in yourself, pray, believe in God, and don't give up.
Hi, my name is Annette Philip, and I am a children's author, YA novelist, and a poet who loves performance poetry. Follow my accounts for more information. Today, I want to encourage any aspiring writers out there to take that leap of faith and go for it. Follow your dream. Believe in yourself. I did. And today, I am unstoppable. I will not give up my passion of writing. It's taking me to places unimaginable. My creativity has evolved because I never gave up my dream of writing. And today, I am an author.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ivenia Benjamin, and I am the founder and the CEO of Emmanuel Publishing House. Emmanuel Publishing House started in 2005 because we wanted to provide our Caribbean writers with an outlet for their creative work. We know how difficult it is to penetrate the traditional publishing houses in, let us say, North America or Europe. And so we didn't want our writers to continue feeling frustration. So we thought it appropriate to start our own label. I wrote my first book in 2005. It's called Caesar Sacrifice, Harvest of Faith. And I too had trouble trying to find someone to publish my work. There were the printers in Dominica who would print the material, but they were not publishers. And so I set about learning the business of publishing, and I tried to get an understanding of what it entailed, and that is how we started Emmanuel Publishing House. We have our own website, is www.emmanuelpublishinghouse.com. We are on Instagram, we are on Twitter. And since 2005, we have published an extensive catalog of work. We have done poetry, we've done educational material, motivational books, historical novels, children's books, name it. As long as the content is acceptable and the quality of the work is high, we will publish for you at Emmanuel Publishing House. As long as it's within our guidelines and our standards, we will allow our writers a chance to express themselves. We know that writers' voices are very important. Writers influence the world in such powerful ways that sometimes we don't even think about. So writers really have a very, very powerful voice, and people write for so many different reasons. Those of us in Dominica will recall the book, The White Sargasso Sea by Jean Rhys. The White Sargasso Sea is a prequel to Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre. And that is also so, it's a novel, but it was so beautifully done. And she was just so wise, and even the whole idea of a prequel was just, to me, it was extraordinary. So writers, we need to find our voices. I actually met an individual, a young German gentleman, who who denied that the Holocaust ever happened. And he said if it did happen, they would the gas that was supposedly used to poison the Jews would still be in the soil. So he's denying it happened. So, the Jews have to write their own stories. So we, as Caribbean people, we have to document our lives. We have to document our history. We have to document our experiences, whether it's by way of poetry, novels, just historical books. We must write. Otherwise, those who are coming after us will not know what we've experienced. They would not know what life was like before. And so we've asked some of our writers at Emmanuel Publishing House to express why they wrote the books and how they found the publishing process. Because publishing these days is so much easier than it ever was before. And so I want to invite you to listen to some of our writers and be motivated by what they have to say. And hopefully you too will stop wasting time. It's actually much later than you think. So start writing. Get out your pen and paper and write. Write what you've been dreaming about writing for all these years. Because if you don't do your own writing and take control of your narrative, somebody else may tell your story, but in a different version that may not even be the truth.
My name is Don Mitchell. I'm a retired judge, a retired High Court judge. I live in Anguilla. I worked in all the islands of the Caribbean over the years. I've been a practicing lawyer since 1971. And in recent years, I have been a law lecturer in the high school in Anguilla, the Albina Lake Hodge Comprehensive School.
I'm Alma Daru, and I am a writer from the Commonwealth of Dominica.
As you will know, CAPE has exams for law, 2 units, 2 years. I have had to prepare my lectures because I could not find any lecture notes for an Anguilla high school, so I decided I will write my own. And Emmanuel Publishing House very kindly offered to publish them after I'd been working on them for a few years, because I taught for 8 years. It was only in the last 3 years that I was lucky enough to have my textbooks published by Emmanuel Publishing House. The first edition was done in 2015, the second edition in 2016, and the third edition in 2018. I have done the first 2 editions on my own, and the third edition I have done with the current law lecturer, Stanley Reed Esquire.
I've been writing for a very long time, in fact, from a very young age. And I remember, as a matter of fact, I remember telling my mother from a very young age that I wanted to be an author one day. And, I began writing, continuously and also reading. I love reading. I'm a voracious reader. And even today, I read all the time. And I remember from my early 20s, I began putting this collection of poetry together. During that time, I was a member of the Dominica Writers Guild, and I noticed that many of my contemporaries were putting out their books, they were publishing their books locally, and it's encouraged me to have my own book out. So I remember, it motivated me.
Like most of us who write, I really never thought that I would see my writing in print. It was a marvel to me when one day somebody said, "But Don, you could get your books published quite easily. Why don't you speak to Emmanuel Publishing Company?" Its managing director was right here in Anguilla. I could talk to her and see if it was true, if it would be possible. And she said, "Of course it's possible." And so we got together and we published the first edition. The next year, I had revisions to make, so we did the second edition. By the third edition, CAPE had gone and changed the syllabus. So we had to rewrite all 6 volumes in order to match the new syllabus. So Stanley Reed helped me, as he was now teaching law, and we redid the 6 books so that he would be able to teach from textbooks that were current, up to date. It was not a lot of work. It was a lot of fun. I'm a lawyer. I've been a lawyer for many years now, nearly 50 years. So you pick up quite a lot during 50 years of time. And things that are very difficult when you are very young become a lot easier.
I began putting this collection together, and as the years went by, I would add to it, intending to have it published. But I wasn't very successful at that until one day I was visited by Miss Ivania Benjamin, the owner of a small publishing company called Emmanuel Publishing House. Now, Ivania is also a friend of mine, and we met through the literary festival. And so, when she told me that was interested in having my book published, of course, I jumped at the chance. And she was also interested in having other local writers' works published. And so we began the publishing process. Now, the publishing process is not as simple as the writing process, I must say. But we endured, uh, we continued, and being a graphic designer also helped me in being and playing a major part in the publication of the book. I was able to design the cover and also, play a part in the editing process of the book. So that was a great thing. And then finally, in 2019, the book was finally published and is now available on Amazon. It's entitled I Am Soul. I am really, really grateful to Ivenia for affording me this opportunity to have my work finally published. It's now available on Amazon. I've had a number of them published. I'm sorry, I had a number of them sold, and they continue to sell on Amazon.
And so I would recommend anyone who has a book, whether it's poetry, a novel, a textbook, who would like to see it in print, to do as I did and contact Emmanuel Publishing House, Miss Ivenia Benjamin. She is a very well-known lawyer from Dominica, and Emmanuel Publishing House is a Dominican publishing company, of course. If you contact her, you can find her online. You can find Emmanuel Publishing House online. You will find contact details there. And I look forward to seeing as many people as possible getting into print so that we can have a Caribbean-wide publishing library of books.
They found a body on the ladder of the gods? The woman at the next table asked loudly. Dunstan, about to tap open the shell on his soft-boiled egg, poised for a microsecond before carrying through the action. It was too late. His pause had been noted. He could almost feel the heat of Marjorie's glare on the unprotected bald spot of his crown. He busied himself, picking bits of shell from the egg's creamy interior, before risking a quick glance at her. Her strong features were twisted in a scowl. I suppose you want to stick your nose in those people's conversation and get all the gory details? Her disapproval made her tone strident, and some of the other patrons at the restaurant turned to look at them. He cleared his throat in embarrassment and tried not to let irration force him into a quick retort. She had been through a lot, and he had promised not to get involved in anything even remotely connected to police matters. He looked in her eyes and saw the fear and pain beneath her bluster. He turned his gaze to the right and stared appreciatively at the turquoise waves lapping the pale gold sand several yards away. The tips of the waves gleamed like star points as they danced with the current. It was idyllic, and just what his weary soul needed to recuperate. He wondered how things were at home, and instantly regretted, he thought, as the memory of his last glimpse of his island flooded his mind, blocking out the tranquil scene before him. The image of flames shooting out the top of the volcano and the hellish glow of the sky and the stench of sulfur was so powerful he felt his pulse quicken and his breath catch. "You okay?" Marjorie leaned forward and put the back of her hand against his forehead. He swallowed hard and forced a smile. She made a sound of concern and signaled to a waiter to refill Dunstan's glass of water. He watched her rummage around in her aged leather handbag until she found the bottle of pills the San Martino doctor had prescribed. Dunstan tugged on his goatee unhappily. He thought about protesting, but at least she wasn't angry anymore. He watched her shake out 2 small white tablets into her hand and reluctantly accepted them from her. He put them under his tongue and let the bitter aftertaste fill his mouth. He drank the lukewarm water, making sure to swallow the tiny grains of the dissolved pills. He smiled at her. She visibly relaxed, and he felt yet another stab of guilt for causing her worry. He scrutinized her, noting the increase in her gray hairs and the deep lines across her forehead and around her mouth. Yet all the while his ears strained towards the conversation at the next table, where the Texan tourist was still speaking quite animatedly. He scooped out some of the congealed yolk and ate it, hoping to cover the metallic tang of the medication. The tourist didn't seem to know much. A man's body had been found on an ancient rock formation in a remote northern village. She was peeved because the tour operator had canceled her group's outing to the famous site and refused a full refund. Marjorie glared at the loud woman and mumbled under her breath. Dunstan ate his buttered toast and munched away, feeling much better. He found it hard to accept that his heart was weak, but the bouts of palpitations and breathlessness had worsened in the weeks leading up to their evacuation from St. Mark's. The doctor, Marjorie had nagged him to go, seemed sure a heart attack was imminent and promptly prescribed heart pills. Certainly thinking of the devastation and watching the images of the ash-covered capital of St. Mark's wrenched his overloaded heart. What he needed was a distraction. Puttering around in this quaint but charming bed and breakfast on the seaside was relaxing, but there was only so much reading and sunbathing one could do. "Let's walk into town and maybe do some window shopping," Marjorie suggested. He sighed inwardly, but agreed. The town was an easy 10-minute walk away, down pleasing flower-lined cobbled streets, and colonial-style homes and store facades in vivid colors. He grabbed the Cubs baseball cap his son had brought him from the U.S., and they walked through the tiny restaurant area and into the lobby. Marjorie told the receptionist at the desk that they would be back in her halting schoolgirl Spanish, and then they left. His spirits lifted at the view of the sun-drenched streets and the outline of the distant hills around the town. San Martino had an attractive, distinct flair due to its Dutch-Spanish-derived culture. Rollicking guitar music floated out from the stores, and the aromas from street vendors' fried meats and pastries made his mouth water. There were too many tourists as far as he was concerned, making a general nuisance with their public drinking and carousing.
Welcome to the Virtual Literary Festival 2025. I am Sharon Dorival, and I am thrilled to share my journey as a writer with you. My work spans poetry, juvenile fiction, biographies, and more. Each piece crafted with passion and purpose. I was born in the beautiful Commonwealth of Dominica and migrated to Canada in 1999. My background in healthcare and early childhood education has shaped the themes I explore in my writing: empathy, resilience, and self-awareness. My poetry collections, such as Poems You Will Love and Poetry on the Run, are deeply personal. They reflect my thoughts on faith, identity, and personal growth, and I hope they inspire you to reflect on your own journey. In my juvenile fiction, like Longer Joe Takes on the Bully, I address important issues such as bullying and peer pressure. These stories are meant to empower young readers to stand up for themselves and others. The biography, Were Your Mom Touched by Evil, co-authored with Anne-Marie MacDonald Coutemache, is a powerful story of healing and resilience. It's a testament to the strength of the human spirit. Through my poetry, I aim to capture the beauty of human connection, the struggles we face, and the triumphs we achieve. My words are a reflection of my soul, and I hope they resonate with yours. My journey as a writer continues with exciting new projects like Portal and Island Whispers. I can't wait to share these stories with you. My work is a celebration of art, culture, and humanity. Through my stories and poems, I hope to inspire, heal, and connect with readers around the world. Thank you for joining me on this journey. To explore my book and upcoming projects, you can visit durableworks.wordpress.com, which is a blog related to my work. You can also find my books on various online retailers, and my work is featured on websites like Goodreads and Lulu. Follow my Facebook page for more. Let's continue this journey together.
Every day, this table keeps turning, surely as it is. Just be positive. My name is Jamie. Most people know me as Jamie, yeah. The father calls me Conrad. Yeah. But who don't really know me, really know the real me, know me as the roots man, you know what I mean? Always want to stand for reality and truth and things that make people feel good and better inside, you know. We have an issue in the Caribbean and one in Dominica especially. Most people tend to leave this beautiful island and run away, you know, instead of finding things and avenues and ways that they can make themselves become as much as they could become. So you find a lot of people leaving the island. But when you look at it, the reason is much deeper than that. We currently follow our education system that has a curriculum that is basically preparing the students, our children, which I myself passed through the system and I didn't like it all that much as some people do. Because it basically prepare you for export, just like how they have the agricultural industry, all based on export. No production, no manufacturing, no agro processing. That's not what the mental structure is about. You grow something for somebody else. That's not life. Two ways to go about something. You can complain about it, or you can do something about it. This was the first draft. It's a publication called The Caribbean Brain Drain. Yeah, and if you notice the graphics, yeah, we have a second draft, which if you go to make an order right now, you're gonna see the cover of the second draft. That's available on Amazon right now as we speak. I wanna welcome you along this journey with me. It's not for everybody. It's just for those who willing and able and determined to do something about the situation. We're looking for people that can walk the walk. You know what I mean? And willing to put their money and the energy where their mouth is. Yeah. Don't just talk the talk, but walk the walk. You know what I mean? Yeah. You only live when you learning. You only grow when you earning. And every day this table keeps turning. Surely as it is, just be positive. Hey, you only live when you learning. You only grow when you earning. And every day this table keeps turning, surely as it is. Hey, why every day like a battlefield? Same old cotton wheel, bills like whips, making hits in this Moneyville. Must have a dollar for the youth, them get a meal. Dear Roots man, ignite it. Now that you know your dreams can come true, yeah. Go within yourself, do what you got to do.
Hello, viewers of the Write-Tukubuli Virtual Literary Festival. My name is Carol Srendo. I'm a visual artist. Occasionally, I get inspired to write poetry, which is a kind of another form of creative expression. Sometimes you can work through things in life. Um, so this poem called Men Don't Weed was inspired by me watching our gardener hack away at some of the plants with a cutlass. And to me, it appeared very cruel, and also reminds me of Hurricane Maria, where things were destroyed and then we got a rapid growth afterwards. So my work really looks at botanical inspiration, metaphors, but also looking at cycles of life, of death and growth, and that whole kind of cyclic energy we see in nature so often. I watched as you forcefully hacked strangler and strangled alike, splitting stems and branches with blunt cutlass in what appeared to me a cruel sport. Men don't weed, she said, amazed by how quickly plants respond to cruelty. New growth almost too rapid. Some say shocked into shape like post-hurricane sproutings. In my efforts to restore Mum's rare and favourite flowers, I set to clearing strangling weeds and overgrowth, survival of the fittest. For a moment, I thought I too had carelessly chopped their struggling heads. I saw my mum's disappointment at perceived loss, and with an act of faith, stooped down to earth, and with bare hands, lovingly picking out strangling weeds and overgrowth. One by one, with soil-stained hands, Pat stripped back to bare earth. A patient waiting game with mostly faith mixed with sprinklings of human doubt. Weeks of tender daily watering of love, battling with slimy night creatures and daily weedy growth. You poked your head once more, and each day made me smile. Climbing to the light, clinging with your leafy tendrils to each other for support. Occasional wooden rods placed to support your fragile spines. That's her sport, he said one day. Today, on your 60th wedding anniversary, flower buds of promise and a single fiery bloom in red and yellow burst forth to celebrate your special week and memories of a lifetime union with my father. Part of my practice is also looking into botanical entanglement, which means the migration of plants into different lands, such as Dominica, as part of my migration journey between Britain and Dominica. I'm going to be reading extracts from a book which came about as part of the Dominica Country Conference 2019, which took place at UWI Global Campus. The conference title was Creole as Cultural Heritage, Framing, Strengthening and Advocating. So this is a book that came about as a culmination of this conference and put together by Dr. Violet Coffey, who was a real advocate for Creole culture. Sadly, she passed away shortly before the publication of the book, but it's really great that her book has come to fruition and is such a valuable input into Creole history and heritage. So the title of the book, Creole Cultures, Volume 1, Safeguarding Creole Intangible Cultural Heritage. And I'm going to be reading from chapter 7, which is titled Entangled Threads, Creolization of Plants and Landscape, which was put together by myself and Dr. Coffey. So I'm going to read a little bit from the introduction first of all. Entanglement and Creolization. Whilst much debate on Creole culture focuses on elements such as language, lifestyle, dress, music, and dance, this chapter extends further to explore a model of entangled botanical heritage. The concept of viewing history collectively as an intertwined global one, or histoire croisée, is becoming increasingly popular as a theoretical framework when re-establishing cultural connections. The term botanical entanglement in this instance is used as a metaphor to highlight these complexities. A metaphor is a means of expression common in many African and indigenous cultures, often drawing on natural references to create mental imagery which aids understanding and learning. The theories of separation and division go back to the birth of scientific racism and taxonomic systems of classifying humans according to appearance and behavior. This system, instigated by Swedish naturalist Carolus Linnaeus in the early 18th century, is one which also applied to plants. Creolization in a Caribbean context could therefore be viewed as an expression of modernism born out of the cultural entanglement of invaders and exploited people, which is rooted in transatlantic trade and colonialism, systems grounded in theories of separation. And in this chapter, I highlight 3 plants which contribute to this entangled botanical roots in a Dominican context: the sugarcane, cotton, and the breadfruit. 3 plants which are very significant in our culture and our landscape. I'm going to talk a little bit about the 3 plants and why I've used them. So sugarcane has an obvious history connected with transatlantic slavery and has significant impact on the deterioration of our lands, but also on the deterioration of our people in terms of our roots and our minds. The cotton is a plant which was grown here, not a plant that we see very much, but it has connection with our indigenous people because there's evidence that Kalinago people were weaving and growing cotton on Dominica. And the breadfruit, which was introduced as a food for enslaved African people who came to Dominica. So in my art, I use plants as a metaphor, but I also use plants as a natural dyes and for a form of exploring this kind of botanical entanglement. Growing up in Dominica, there's a little bit in this book also about the botanic gardens and the things that I hold there, memories that I have walking in the gardens and looking at things like the black velvet tamarind, which were little pods, black velvety pods, which we found in the grass, and cannonball tree and other plants which we hold there, some of which don't exist anymore. So yeah, thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the literary festival.
Hi, I'm Benjabite. What's the story? What do you think is happening in this picture? Create your own story idea and drop it in the comments below.
Welcome to Dr. Steinberg Henry, and to share with me the honor of having him as my guest tonight on this week. Welcome, my brother.
Thank you very much, my friend, and thanks for all that you've done.
Yeah. So you haven't been on for a little while, but
I haven't been since as you said, since.
Yeah, yeah. So congratulations are in order.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You remember that statistics assignment?
Yes, I remember the statistics assignment. We tried. We tried our best. But you know, if that gives me a very small fingertip in your journey towards your great achievement, it's an honor.
Yes.
And you deserve it, man.
I remember I remember calling Dennis Joseph, it's a good friend of mine, Dennis Joseph, and I said, Dennis, I defended that PhD. In his brilliance, he answered, thanks for making me part of this.
I share that sentiment.
Yes, because he had known me since I was 22 when I entered radio.
But right now, Stan, you look like you're just about 30, 31, 32, so it's not that long ago, right?
Thank God I'm scoring, man.
That's right. That's right. We have to give thanks for that, you know.
Yes.
We on our culture sometimes, you know, age is revered. You know, in our adopted culture, youth is maybe a little bit overrated.
Overrated, yeah. But it's good. It is a pleasure to meet. I thought about you and I thought, what is he going to think? Because remember, we did Calypso Drift and Water.
Right.
And then I'm wondering, this book it's not a post PhD book. I wrote it before, but I just edited it during this period. I haven't written, I have written, but I haven't published anything yet since my PhD. But that, I can assure you, will be coming soon. But I thought, I wonder what Anthony was going to think. When I spoke with Sam said, Stein, this is a different kind of book. I say, yeah, I said light, you know.
Yeah. You know, you may have written it, it's not post PhD, but it's the type of work that one does because they now have a little more leisure time. Yeah. And so you search a different part of your soul and you share that part, you know, because you've sort of gotten to that flowing spring where you can sit down and cool your feet for a minute and reflect on the more nostalgic, you know, parts of life. Good evening to you, my good friend, Catherine Helena Dorset, as well as Noveless. Noveless is on with us as well. Catherine has been trying to get a book out of me. She said, there's a book in me somewhere, and she's been trying to help me give birth to it. She's the most patient midwife I know.
Yeah, when you've written it, send it to me. I'll edit it.
Awesome. Oh, well, now I almost don't have a choice to get an offer like that. But seriously, though, saying, let's start to talk about Jolita, because I think once we start to talk about Jolita, we're going to run out of time. So let's jump right in, and I'm going to give you the privilege to introduce to the audience Jolita. Who is Jolita? What is Jolita? For now, we know is the title of your latest book.
Jolita is an intelligent woman who, as the book says, she's 26. And the person she communicates with is named Stein, and he is 60. And she shares, I described her as a Creole writer woman because she embodies the totality of care, friendship, love, the capacity for reflection on history, sense of culture, matters culinary, style. She has a love for children and for older persons. And she surely has a love and a concern for a man who's visually impaired, as I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so she comes into the book becomes interesting more and more because of who Jolita is. I remember saying to Wadix, the Creole master, that Jolita is a Creole writer woman. And so this is how I would like to to present her. I locate her in a Dominican community or village. She tells me what she looks like, so we get a description of her. She describes herself as 5'2". She says she's not tall, she's 5'2", and she's not small either. She's thick, dark, Dominican girl, and she has dark brown eyes and hair that falls down to her shoulder. And she describes herself as your ideal Dominican girl. And so that is constructed. Jolita is so designed. She becomes a friend throughout. And it's a very strange writing because it juxtaposes the reality of my existence and my visual concern, because as you've read, Jolita expresses a great concern about my sight. And at the same time, Jolita is probably not known because she's inscribed in a text. And does she really exist? Is it the writer's configuration or construction? Is it a real person? So, what I found out, having said this, persons are calling me to tell me, well, a number of persons are attracted to the book because it presents a young woman sharing what seems to be a relationship with an older man. And that is becoming so fashionable these days that a number of women are finding the work interesting to read. A number of guys are pulling it on the side because it has many layers, many layers, because the person who she writes to is Stein, and Stein has a wife and children. And she has a son and a boyfriend. You see, but writing has a certain sensuality about it.
Right.
As the text unfolds, it becomes friendlier and friendlier. And because of the mutual respect that the two people share for each other, the text is not allowed to slip into anything like undressing, but it remains very passionate and emotional throughout. And Jolita sustains that and sometimes encourages that because she likes it too. And I'm encouraged because I'm thrilled to write it. So it's one of the layers. Does Jolita really exist? Is it a construction of Steinberg Henry's brain or his imagination?
Right.
Is it? So those are the questions that began to emerge from persons who read Jolita. And there were persons who thought that I had, should I say, fractured social norms because I'm supposed to be married if Stein is the true representative, and I shouldn't be writing this to a young woman. I should maintain a certain
decorum.
And I shouldn't be doing this. But as I said before, one of the things I appreciate about The Mighty Sparrow, and I'm an artist first, artist. Good evening to Ra. One of the things I enjoyed about The Mighty Sparrow as a Caribbean icon of, tremendous, capacity and ability, is that he wrote Capitalism Gone Mad.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote Slave. He wrote, those Man Will Survive. and yet he still wrote Saltfish Stew is the one I like.
Right. Gin and Gina.
Gina,
Gina, I mean.
Rosita,
Yeah,
and Clementina.
Rosita. Mhm.
So I think what the artist, I was even listening a bit to Exile One, and I was listening to the song Réfléchis. And as if I heard Gordon Henderson say, Réfléchis avant couper.
And in a Dominican context,
Yeah,
yeah.
in a sense, an artist, it's something I've always wanted to do. And I am drawn in the context of nasty business and Buyo. I find, how do I balance this with a bit of erotica and philosophy, but not drop it into sexuality? And at the same time, write something that is sassy and nice to keep the reader thrilled and a bit turned on, and at the same time tell them that there's a philosophical outlook to all of this. It's literary, it's beautiful, because towards the end there's a lot of reiteration and a bringing back of the text and reflection on the text, and there's an epilogue to the text and so on. So that is the kind of stuff that I try to do with this. I call it a fascinating summer read. Actually, I'm supposed to be having some adverts running in Dominica for Julita as a summer read and asking people to buy it on Amazon as a Kindle, which is a simple thing, but they are all forms. There's a paperback and there's the hardcover. But the book itself the actual copy is beautiful in design. The cover is lovely. It presents two persons sitting down face to face on a bench, sort of writing. Each have something to write. It was in part designed by my Dominican friend Nadine Edmond. She lives in Arkansas. And in the background with some sort of trees and so it's beautiful. And in the interior, we have all they are letters. So we have Julita first writes me a letter. There's a date, and at the top of each letter there's a fruit. There's a lovely fruit, and then that adds a certain color to the text inside. And there's the name of the person who writes. So if it's Julita, it's Julita. If it's Stein, it's Stein. And there's the date of the letter.
Right.
So each letter, there are days you notice that there are days when the letter there are 2 or 3 communications in the day because things are getting tight. But, you can see the rapidity, and sometimes you can see the great delay towards the end as the communication lessens between Julita in Dominica and Stein in Georgia, as the communication lessons. So it's quite it was very thrilling to have done this.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a work of genius, and it's work that can be done only by a genius. And why do I say that? Is because it pushes so many buttons, on so many levels.
Yes, it does.
Which 50, how old is Stein in the Stein character in the book? 50?
60.
60. Which 60-year-old, academic man, professional man, is not fascinated by having a communication with a 27-year-old young lady that is fully engaged?
Well, she's above the age of consent.
Right. No, but I mean, it harkens you back. It sort of anchors you back to your youth. So there's that, and it doesn't even mean that it's an erotic or sexual relationship. It's just that a 60-year-old man having a 27-year-old female pay attention to him in whatever form or format, and genuinely engaged and sustained over a period of time. I can see that having appeal in and of itself. Yeah. Then you come to the fact that all you have is a description. So in the age of AI, every reader can engage AI and say, hey, can you show me what Julita looks like? She's 5'2", she's Dominican, she's dark skinned, she's thick, whatever, and see what AI. So every reader can make their own avatar of Julita, right?
Yes.
It, it also sort of provides that kind of from Julita's point of view, a father figure,
Yes.
that maybe her individual father may not has been intellectual. Maybe he might have been more of a hands-on person or different type of professional, but there she is, obviously someone who is a mental person, a thinking person, interacting with a father figure that has those traits. So I can see a young lady leaning in on that, and we
And
can go. Go
yeah,
ahead, Stan. Go ahead.
and on August, if you look at the August 13th, I remember this particular letter of August 13, 2015, because, and I picked it out, and probably it's the only one I'll remember, although I have Julita somewhere in the back of my screen here. But
I have it on Kindle.
the August 13th letter of 2015, where she says, I'm sorry I took so long to respond. I was confused. I didn't know what to say. I have never opened myself to someone like I do to you. That is one of the things, and that was in early o'clock in the communication.
Right.
And there's so many things, because as I said as I wrote in the text, it's a pleasure. Somebody says, Tiny, is this fiction? It's a pleasure.
so Stan, stick a pin there, right? What went through my mind is that everybody who reads this book would like to have a conversation with the author and have the author answer those questions. But I think the fascination with the book and the continued experience of the book is not to have those questions answered, and to have the reader attempt to answer those questions themselves. And maybe on the second read, is the answer the same as you had the first time you read it?
Wow.
And to decide, well, is this all from Stein's head? Does Jolita really exist? Is there really a girl in Dominica called Jolita? I don't think there's anybody who has someone in Dominica called Jolita. And so I think that, and how does Stein get the confidence to publish that book his wife doesn't read? And all of those questions, I think, contribute towards the work of art. So it's like somebody looking at the Mona Lisa and having all kind of questions of the Mona Lisa, but the artist is no longer alive for you to ask those questions. So you have to come up with your answers yourself. And maybe people have to write essays about what they think the smile means or the look means, or what, that somebody can write an essay. Okay, I think that Jolita exists because there is why. You see evidence I present to say, hey. And somebody says, no. This must be from the author's imagination because so. I mean, I could see a whole.
Nice. A lot of things appeared, but it's interesting that you say that, because it is so real.
Yeah.
The emotions, I was told, leave the idea, the question of whether it is fiction or non-fiction to the reader's imagination.
Exactly.
But the strange thing is the information is so real,
right,
that you wonder, does somebody really exist? When the person says, I will be in a carnival band in a certain community in Dominica, and I hope to meet you there. Is that really real?
And somebody goes back to Stein's old neighborhood and said, do you remember Stein was in Dominica for Carnival in 2016?
Yes, somebody, see, yes, somebody may try to find that out. But then there are other layers of text. For instance, when Julita says that Julita, there's one part of the story that's interesting. We can't cover all the stuff. You have to read the book.
Of course.
There's one part of the text where after Julita had written, and I had written, and Julita had written, and I had written, and then Julita wrote a note and told me that she's having a very dark day today. And I said, what has caused you to be so dark, my dear? And she said, the one I loved, I think he's seeing another woman. So that is a powerful layer, because here she is communicating with me from Derek Walcott's poem about the breast of the moon and stuff. And then her boyfriend, as far as she's concerned, walks out on her. And he is seeing another woman. And she's reaching out to me to tell me this is happening. And in my philosophical way, I'm trying to provide comfort. You know, the father figure that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm no longer the guy who finds the 5 feet too thick attractive.
Mm-hmm.
I am now the father figure, because you realize the multiple roles that a person has to play. Yeah, once your friend, another time your boyfriend, another time your lover, another time your father, another time your... And in this case, I had to be guiding her through, and she would tell me things like, she will never love again, and so, you know, she is loved and lost. And I go right away to get that poem. It is better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. So there's a lot of literature inside of the the text itself. There's reference to so much, you know, to so much musical, you know, overtures. She tells me that she's not particularly interested. She doesn't like the food. She thinks, and those are very important observations, simple, but she doesn't like the food she eats. She eats, it's just turned around, but it's about the same thing each time. She's experimenting with some Spanish things. She likes Spanish food. She finds it exciting. She doesn't necessarily like to eat vegetables. She thinks it's a mind thing, and she wants to. And so I asked her in one of the letters at the end, do you meditate? And she wrote back and she said she's tried to meditate, but every time she tries, she has so many thinks, T-H-I-N-K-S, and I found that word lovely. Mm-hmm. And they get in the way, so many thoughts. And I write to say that one day I hope I can teach you to meditate when we meet sometime. And she's fascinated about when we go. Oh boy, this is such.
This is as Catherine Dossett says, this is delightful, folks. We at the bottom of the hour. We're going to take a quick break. My guest tonight on This Week in Interview is Dr. Steinberg Henry. He is written in his own Steinberg style, a completely different type of book. Different in format because it's a book of exchanges. When we were young, before there was WhatsApp and SMS,
we had pen pals.
We had pen pals. Yeah. So for all intents and purposes, it's a set of exchanges between two pen pals. A young man of 60 years old and an even younger lady
of 26.
who is 27, and their correspondence is captured and put in print and given to us to read and to ask the million questions that it evokes and to stimulate the billions of thoughts that it stimulates. And so stay with us. When we come back, we're going to learn more about Julita.
gentlemen. My name is Amika Cognet, and I am one of Dominica's uprising poets. I'm so excited to be a part of a Write-Tukubuli Literary Festival, and I hope that you guys enjoy my pieces that I have submitted. This first one is called The Apology of Water. They say water remembers. Every touch, every tremor, every vessel that it held, every body that drank it dry. And if water remembers, then what of me? What of me? You see, 90% water, 90% memory. I am not just a flood of forgotten faces, a pool of promises left to rot. They say water is life, meant to give life to everything that it touches. But for me, it's different. My everyday is a nightmare of drowning, gasping for air, clawing onto the surface while the waves keep pulling me down. Yet, some days, I feel to sit in the bathtub and just slide all the way down and not coming back up for air. You see, sometimes I feel like Atlantis, washed away, submerged, but they're there beneath it all, and people have to dive deep. So deep that that's the only time that they can reach me, to see my smile, to see the bright parts of me, but I'm 6 feet under, trying, just trying to breathe. They say water is life, but death sleeps in the deep. Death hides in the RIP, in the glint of a glassy surface that smiles while it swallows, and my mouth is so dry. I don't understand why it's so dry. My heart is a drum, and why is it so? It's beating so fast, and cold sweat pushes through my pores, and as though tears weren't enough, yet my mouth stays dry. Water takes the shape of whatever it holds, but it's just like me. I bend, I fold, I feel every crack you give me, stretch to fit your expectations until I'm thin, thin and transparent until I disappear. I'm a river in rage, rushing, reckless, tearing down a reason, bursting banks, and there's no way back. I'm a still pond, but you don't see what's beneath. You don't see the weeds wrapping around my ankles and pulling me down. Water sheds, but it drowns. You see, it has you swinging, it has you swaying, but going nowhere. It's meant to hydrate, but it prunes our skin. It wrinkles your fingers and it shrivels all the edges. The longer you stay in it, that's the only way you'll know what's in between. You see, waterfalls, like my thoughts fall, wet, wild, unforbidden, like a storm inside my skin. Water rises, so does panic, and so does dread. It swells in the silence, it fills the room, it floods the lungs. Just breathe. Breathe, but how? You see, water is a lover that soothes but scalds, liquid that slips through fingers or drowns, ice that numbs or cuts, a mist that masks or blinds, stream that burns or bursts. I am all of these, yet I am none. I am changing, always changing, but never free. You see, my chest is tight. Why is my chest so tight? And my head is loud. And why is my head so loud? In some places, they pray to water, pour rum to river, bake babies in a blessed springs. In others, they build walls higher and higher, as if floods won't find a way. Depression is water that creeps through every crack, that seeps, that drips, wearing me hollow, wearing me gone. I am sorry for the flood. I am sorry for the frost, for the fog, for the tears. I am sorry for every spill of water, every drop that won't stop, for every overflow, for every leak that slipped my lips, for every level and every wave I couldn't hold back. But water is memory, and water is life. And all I've ever known is how to be 90% water, while the 10% of me depends and adjusts and shifts with the state of however my water flows, however it forms. But I only become what you poured into me. Thank you. Hi guys, this is my second piece. It's called How Do You Love a Strong Woman? Tell me, how do you love a strong woman? Not the kind who acts strong, but the kind who is. The kind that just holds it down and she is the ground. The backbone, the bass note, the one who wakes up with the weight of the world pressed into her shoulders like perfume, but still struts through her day like she was born of honey and hurricane, the one who holds secrets in her spine and prayers in the soles of her feet. How do you love the woman who shows up full? And even when she's half empty, she's the type of who gives and gives and gives and gives until until her love feels like labor and silence feels like sanctuary. Who stretches her smile like fabric over pain so no one sees the bruise beneath her bravery. She's the type to say, "I'm good," when she's barely breathing. The one who moves mountains before she ever asked to move a pebble. You see, strong women, they are born from fire and missed by storms. They are the walking miracles of mothers who didn't rest. The grandmothers who prayed till their knees bled. She cries, generations in her bones. You see, her grandmother's prayers, her mother's pain, the dream of 1,000 sisters who never got to rest. So tell me, how do you love her? You start by slowing down. You love her soft, and not because she's fragile, but because she never gets to be. Talk to her with fingertips. Let your hands learn her language before your mouth ever speaks. You be the silence where she can put down her shield without ever being asked. You see, to pick up another, you trace the ache behind her laughter. You kiss the corners of her resilience like you were born to taste her truth. You see, to love her, you must teach her what love feels like in return. Not the transactional kind she's used to, not obligation masked as devotion, but the kind that drips slow. You see, like syrup over Sunday bread, the kind that lets her exhale without asking if she's being too much. You love her by seeing her, not just the superwoman suit, but the tired eyes behind it, the battles, the fights that don't come with applause, the dreams that she buries, and she buries them behind duty and deadline. You see, you love her with all her flaws, and you love her in a way that reminds her she deserves the very softness. Her hands are like candy, and you let her know that her skin is not just armor, it's velvet, and that she deserves to be caressed and not just tested. You see, you love a strong woman by holding space for the girl in her who never was allowed to fall apart, to give her permission to not be okay and to still be divine. She's stubborn. Oh, she's stubborn. And she'll fight you. She'll build walls of independence and wrap herself in, "I got this." So love her like water, love her like stone, not by breaking it, but by smoothing it over time. Be steady, be still, be real. Hold her gaze when she tries to look away. Call her out when she hides behind strength. Tell her, "No, baby, you don't have to carry it all. Let me hold you now." So, how do you love a strong woman? You kiss the parts of her that ain't polished, the parts that hide so no one sees the cracks, and then you tell her that even cracked things hold light and that she has been shining all along. And when she forgets who she is, because even goddesses get tired, you whisper her name back into her own mouth. You love her by loving her until she starts loving herself. You love her by choosing her when she forgets to choose herself, by showing her that even when she swears she doesn't need anyone, especially then. Because the strongest women, they're the ones who carry everyone, but sometimes, just sometimes, they need someone to carry them and remind her that her surrender is not the opposite of strength, it is the final form. Love her by saying, I got you, love, and meaning it, by telling her it's okay to cry and not being scared when she finally does. You make her feel safe. You be soft. You make her feel holy in her mess. You love her like she's art and not to be fixed, but studied, admired, and felt. So if you ever wonder how to love a strong woman, you let her rest. You let her be. You love her enough to let her be human and not just a hero. You don't just touch her body. You see it. You don't just trace her curves. You honor the valleys that she walked through and still stand tall. And when she finally rests her head against your chest and lets the tears come, those sacred, unforbidden tears, you hold her like blessings you never want to lose. Because the strongest women are not asking for saviors. They really aren't. They're asking for someone to be brave enough to love them whole. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. Today we're going to talk about villains, specifically how to write great ones. Why is this so important? Because your antagonist is often the engine that drives your entire story forward. A great story needs great conflict, and the source of that conflict, more often than not, is your villain. They are the ones who create the problems your protagonist must solve. They are the force that tests your hero, pushing them to grow, to change, and to become the person they need to be by the end of the book. Without a compelling antagonist, your hero's journey can feel empty and unearned. A weak villain leads to a weak story. It's that simple. Think of your villain as a mirror for your hero. They reflect the hero's struggles, but often show a different path, a darker choice that could have been made. The villain's actions force the hero to define who they are and what they stand for. If your antagonist is just a generic force of evil, a shadowy figure who wants to destroy the world for no clear reason, then the hero's opposition to them is just as generic. But if your villain is complex, with understandable, perhaps even sympathetic motivations, then the hero's struggle becomes far more interesting. The conflict becomes a clash of ideologies, not just a simple fight between good and evil. This dynamic is what creates tension. It's what keeps readers turning the pages late into the night. They want to see how the hero will overcome such a formidable, intelligent, and motivated opponent. The villain sets the stakes. If the villain is capable and clever, the danger feels real. The reader believes the hero might actually fail. This sense of genuine risk is absolutely essential for creating a gripping narrative. A poorly written villain can make the entire plot feel predictable and low stakes, robbing your story of its power and leaving the reader feeling unsatisfied with the eventual climax and resolution. So when you sit down to write, don't treat your villain as an afterthought. Don't just make them the bad guy. Give them the same care and attention you give your protagonist. Spend time developing their backstory, their desires, and their worldview. Because in many ways, the strength of your hero is measured by the strength of the villain they must face. A truly memorable hero is often defined by the shadow of a truly memorable villain. Investing in your antagonist is one of the best investments you can make in your story. It pays dividends in every chapter, with every plot twist, and in the final satisfying conclusion. Now, let's discuss a common pitfall: the flat, one-dimensional villain. We've all seen this character. They are evil just for the sake of being evil. They cackle maniacally while tying someone to the train tracks. They want to conquer the world because, well, that's just what villains do. This type of antagonist is often called a cardboard cutout because they lack depth. They feel more like a plot device than a real person. The problem with this is that they are predictable. Readers can see their every move coming from a mile away, and this completely drains the story of any real suspense or intrigue. These cartoonish villains fail to connect with the reader on an emotional level. Because they aren't believable as people, their actions don't carry the same weight. When a complex villain commits a terrible act, we might be horrified, but we also might understand the twisted logic that led them there. This creates a much more powerful and disturbing experience. A flat villain, on the other hand, elicits a much simpler response. Oh, the bad guy is doing a bad thing again. There is no nuance. no moral ambiguity, and therefore no deep engagement from your audience. They become a checklist item rather than a driving force of the narrative. So how do you avoid this? The key is to stop thinking of them as villains and start thinking of them as people. People who are the antagonists of your story, yes, but people nonetheless. Every person has a history, a set of beliefs and reasons for the things they do. Your antagonist is no different. They didn't just wake up one morning and decide to be evil. Something happened in their past. They developed a philosophy. They have a goal they are trying to achieve, and from their perspective, their actions are completely justified. They are the heroes of their own story, a concept we will explore more deeply later on. Consider an example. A villain who simply wants to poison the city's water supply is boring. But what if that villain is a brilliant scientist who believes humanity is a plague on the planet? What if they witnessed a loved one die from a disease caused by industrial pollution? Now, their goal to cleanse the earth, while monstrous, comes from a place of pain and a twisted sense of justice. They aren't just evil. They are a person with a warped but understandable motivation. This simple addition of a Y transforms them from a cardboard cutout into a character who feels real, making their conflict with the hero far more compelling. The first step in building a better villain is to give them a clear and understandable goal. This goal should not be to be evil. Evil is a judgment, not a motivation. The goal needs to be something tangible, something specific that they are actively trying to achieve within the story. Perhaps they want to acquire a specific artifact of power. Maybe they want to restore their fallen kingdom to its former glory. Or perhaps they want to create a world of perfect order, even if it means stripping everyone of their free will. The more concrete the goal, the better. It gives the villain a purpose and directs their actions. Once you have the goal, you need to give them a believable motive. This is the why behind their goal. Why do they want the artifact? Why do they want to restore their kingdom? The motive is the emotional engine driving the villain. It's rooted in their backstory and their core beliefs. For example, let's take Magneto from the X-Men comics. His goal is to ensure the dominance of mutants. His motive? He is a survivor of the Holocaust who saw firsthand what happens when one group of people decides to exterminate another. He believes that if he doesn't strike first, humanity will inevitably try to wipe out all mutants. This combination of goal and motive leads directly to justification. In the villain's mind, their actions are not only necessary, but also right. They believe they are making the hard choices that no one else is willing to make. The scientist poisoning the water supply justifies their actions by believing they are saving the planet from a greater evil. Magneto justifies his aggressive stance by seeing it as the only way to prevent a genocide. This internal justification is crucial because it makes the villain act with conviction. They are not conflicted about being evil. They are resolute in their righteousness, which makes them a much more formidable and interesting opponent. So, your step-by-step process should look like this. First, define a specific active goal. Second, dig into their past and personality to establish a powerful emotional motive for that goal. Third, understand how they use that motive to justify their actions, no matter how terrible those actions may seem to others. If you build your villain from this internal foundation, their behavior will feel consistent and logical, even if it is morally reprehensible. They will cease to be a simple obstacle and will become a true character whose presence elevates the entire narrative. One of the most powerful things you can do as a writer is to fully embrace the idea that your villain is the hero of their own story. This is a fundamental shift in perspective that can, honestly, revolutionize how you write antagonists. Don't write them from the hero's point of view, where they are simply the bad guy. Instead, try to climb inside the villain's head. See the world through their eyes. From their vantage point, they are not the villain at all. They are the protagonist. They are the one with the vision, the courage, and the will to do what is necessary to fix a broken world. From this perspective, it is the hero who is the villain. The hero is the one standing in the way of progress. The hero is the naive fool who doesn't understand the true nature of the world. The hero is the agent of chaos trying to preserve a corrupt and flawed status quo. When your antagonist views the hero in this way, their interactions become electric. It's not just a fight, it's a debate. It's a clash of two opposing, deeply held philosophies, with each side absolutely convinced they are right. This creates a rich, complex conflict that goes far beyond simple punches and explosions. To make this work, you have to give your villain a worldview that is coherent and internally consistent. For example, take Thanos from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. His belief is that the universe has finite resources and that life, if left unchecked, will expand until it consumes everything and collapses. His solution, eliminating half of all life, is horrific, but it comes from a logical, albeit ruthless, premise. He sees himself as a savior, making a terrible sacrifice to bring balance and prosperity to the universe. He sees the Avengers as sentimental children who refuse to face the hard truth. He is, without a doubt, the hero of his own story. When you successfully craft a villain who sees themselves as the hero, you open the door to creating moments of genuine empathy. The reader might find themselves, just for a fleeting moment, understanding the villain's point of view. They might even agree with a part of their argument, even if they condemn their methods. This moral grey area is where great storytelling lives. It forces the reader to think and to question their own assumptions. It makes the villain unforgettable, not because of how evil they are, but because of how dangerously close they came to being right. Finally, to make your villain truly memorable, you need to treat them like any other well-rounded character. This means giving them both strengths and weaknesses. A villain who is all-powerful and has no flaws is not only boring, but also makes the hero's victory feel impossible or worse, like a cheap trick. The villain's strengths should be formidable. Maybe they are a brilliant strategist, a charismatic leader, or incredibly powerful in combat. These strengths are what make them a credible threat. They should be good at what they do, often even better than the hero in some respects. However, you must balance these strengths with meaningful flaws. These flaws should be character-based, not just a convenient secret weakness, like a hidden vulnerability to a rare mineral. A great flaw is something that stems from their personality. Perhaps their arrogance makes them underestimate the hero. Maybe their obsession with a particular goal blinds them to a simple solution. Or maybe, despite their ruthlessness, they have a single person they care about, and that love becomes a vulnerability the hero can exploit. These flaws make the villain feel human and provide a logical path for the hero to eventually defeat them. Let's look at Darth Vader. His strengths are immense. He is a master of the Force, a fearsome pilot, and the Emperor's ruthless enforcer. He commands armies and inspires terror throughout the galaxy. For most of the original trilogy, he seems nearly unbeatable. But what is his flaw? It's the tiny spark of humanity left inside him, his buried love for his son. It is this flaw, this single emotional vulnerability, that ultimately leads to his downfall and redemption. The Emperor's failure to account for this human element is what allows the heroes to win. The flaw was perfectly integrated with his character arc. So as you finalize your villain, give them a balance of power and vulnerability. Make them excel in ways that challenge your hero, but give them a human failing that makes their defeat feel earned. The ultimate goal is to create an antagonist who feels like a real person, a person twisted by their beliefs and motives, but a person nonetheless. They should be powerful, intelligent, and driven. They should believe they are the hero, and they should have flaws that make them tragically, compellingly human. Do this, and your villain will not only serve your story, but will also linger in the minds of your readers long after they've finished the last page.
Good day, everybody. My name is Carla Armo, and I am a poet-writer from Dominica. And I just feel really honored to submit 3 poems that I will be reading at this first ever Write-Tukubuli Virtual Literary Festival. Just a little bit of a trigger warning. The poems that I have chosen are centered around domestic violence. And it's a little bit of my clarion call for those of us in society where we witness this happening, this taking place if we can reach out to people, if we can be there for the victims, and if we can voice what's going on and support them. So I'm bringing a little bit of this to the festival and hoping that that can have some positive impact. Just a trigger warning, some things may feel a little sensitive. So I hope that you will have the support available to you, and I know you will, because definitely it will be something that will be posted with the Write-Tukubuli Literary Festival. So here goes. Before I take too much time, the first poem I'm going to read is called Powerful Anger. Okay, and it goes like this. To make my anger powerful, I will share my opinions and personal experiences. I will purge my bowels of the pain that is our mothers. I will open my clenched fists from the faces of our brothers. To make our anger powerful, we will search for the reasons, see the symptoms, find solutions. Instead of not knowing, many not even caring, most just existing. We will accept that this scourge is our doing. To make my anger powerful, I will be the cement in the concrete of my home and lay myself as the floorboards in the front room to bring to fruition a creation in my mind. I will change the course from my womb. I will use my anger as a quiet shout, screaming sacred profanities at the perpetrators, raging judicial wars against the aggressors. I will not be scared. I will be angry. I will use my anger to give me power, strength that my gender is not permitted, as literal punching bags in a warped society of power misappropriated and weakness perpetuated. I will round up my mothers, my sisters, and my brothers. I will clothe my children with the full armor of love, because I must make our anger powerful. Thank you. My second poem is entitled What If? And I am putting myself in the shoes of the victim and asking this question, what if? I want you to ask yourself the same question. What if? What if my body grew arms that caressed me instead of shielding me, soothed me, swaddled me like a healing balm that calmed me? What if my broad brown back broke under the weight of deception, bruised by unspoken, was exposed? What if my shoulders, holding your expectations, slumped under exhaustion, letting the illusion slip? What if that twinkle in my eyes was really tears, shedding light on my fears? became screens broadcasting my reality? What if my smile spoke the truth, ungrinned my pain, screamed my delusion, my desperate disappointment? What if someone, anyone, filled silence with anything? What if, instead of saying nothing, silence was broken wide open? What if unblinded eyes unturned? What if unturned backs stepped in, acknowledging my torment? And what if everyone stopped talking, but ghosted my abuser? A silence that would speak volumes. What if? What if? My third poem is called Unburnable. Unburnable. It's a question. Tell me about that woman. You know that one. You know a few. You know many. Tell me about that woman who faces down the broad-shouldered brute's shame and his twin brother disappointment. Tell me about that woman who looks down the barrel of abuse held up against her by his trigger-happy cousins' rape and violence. Tell me about the woman who sleeps with rage and kisses betrayal. Good morning. Tell me about that woman whose ceiling is oppression and floorboards are responsibility. Spaces she is forced to dwell in, to clean with buckets of salty tears. Tell me about that woman who retells her story in multiple translations, deconstructing, reconstructing, reenacting his story, seeking to make sense of the senseless. Tell me about that woman who finds the ingredients of forgiveness and recipes for vindication. Tell me about that woman who lays out her checkered past of jagged-edged swatches for her clan to lay safe upon. Tell me about that woman again. Tell me about her, please. But tell me about that woman and her imperishable spirit. Tell me about that woman and her indestructible will. Tell me about her, that woman with her unflinching commitment. I'll tell you about that woman. She is the phoenix rising from her ashes daily. Well, woman, I tell you, you are no myth, no story, but the real deal. I see you. Woman, you reverberate against those eums, isms, shons, reverberating, resonating, oh, so loudly against. I tell you about that woman We all know her. Ferocious flames. No, no, no. They cannot mess with this sister because she is unburnable. You know that woman.